Welcome to the Friendly Moms Club podcast with Jen and Karlee. We're the new mom friends you didn't know you needed.
We are creating a safe space to bring moms together, lighten the heaviness, and find joy in the everyday moments. Together, we will share our own experiences of being new moms while navigating the topics we wish more people talked about.
Join us every Monday to hear us skip the small talk and dive right into the uncomfortable.
Happy Mom Day!
Happy Mom Day! Very exciting.
It's always exciting to be here. We just came back from stroller fitness and it was awesome.
We got our swell on. Look at us.
Or sweat. I don't think
Jacked and
swell
tanned.
on is a saying. I don't think people say that.
You get swollen. You get swell?
I don't know.
I don't know. I'm looking pretty swollen.
Well, anyways, it was awesome. And if you listen to our first episode, it is such a fun way to meet moms. We know everyone in the class now.
We do.
We talk to everyone and we've just met them at other places too.
Yeah.
So we just kind of like...
It's like all the local moms in our area just keep going to all these different mom and baby events, whether it's mom and baby yoga, the library, swim lessons, and we just keep seeing them over and over again, and then you become friends.
Yeah, it's so much fun. And
it's really great.
No one cares. Like, my baby cried for the entire first class I ever went to stroller fit, like an entire hour. And the instructor was awesome. She was like,
great.
I'll just push her in the stroller. I'll take her out. Do you want me to feed her? And like, she's so great. She'll offer to change diapers.
Yeah.
No one cares. And if anything, if your child was like difficult that day, people are like, you go, mom. Like, people are so encouraging. Even if you had the shittiest workout, people are just like, you came, you finished, like, you stayed. That is good for you.
Even if you just go and push your stroller
and
you're just walking around and you're just out of your house, you're with your baby, you're amongst your people.
Yeah.
It's great.
You just feel better.
Yeah.
People literally will be breastfeeding and squatting at the same time. Like, boobs are welcome to be out.
Yeah, bottles are welcome too.
It's all moms that are at the groups that we've gone to, but I don't think it matters. Like, any parent is welcome to go. Stroller fitness, why not? You just might see some boobs if you're a guy that wants to go. But,
and you know what? Boobs are normal.
Yeah.
We've all got them.
I know. My husband wanted to go. Like, he really was like, oh, you can't make it this week. Maybe I should go with Jordan. And I was like, you should. It's
I wish
fun.
he came. He would have a great time.
I know.
And then
I'll encourage him.
After, we often come to my house because it's just up the street from us. And a bunch of us have lunch together.
Yep.
And we take turns cooking. And last night I asked my husband, I was like, do you care that I have people over every week? And he's like, yeah, because I can't come. And I was like, you do want to come hang out.
He wants to be one of us.
He loves hanging out with the mamas.
See, parents want friends in general. It's not just the mom friends. Like, parents, any new parents, I think, just want someone to be able to talk about all of this with. And like, our husbands have both said that. So I think it's just a universal thing. So get your husbands, partners, everyone involved. Why not?
Get them out.
Yeah.
All right.
I guess we should actually talk about today's episode. We could talk about this forever because we feel very passionate about it.
We do like to talk.
Yeah. Yes. But today is all about pregnancy. The good, the bad, the hyperemesis. Which, if you haven't figured out, that is the ugly. And we will explain why that is the ugly.
We're going to tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah, pregnancy, not so fun.
We both had kind of crappy experiences. And we both had expectations that it would be better. And we were really let down. And that kind of led to an even worse pregnancy when you had that expectation. And then it severely undercut what our expectations were. And then it made it, we felt even worse about it. So,
I thought I was going to be a goddess. Spoiler. I was not.
Just wait till you see some photos we post.
I was not glowy in any way other than the sweats, like the nausea sweats.
Yes.
I did get a little glow from that. And if you throw up really hard, you actually can break little blood vessels in your face. And then it kind of looks like you got like a little natural blush on. So, there's that.
Okay. Well, way to find a positive.
That's what I'm here for.
Okay. Well, let's just dive right into it. Why don't you
get started.
Explain your experience to everyone.
Yeah. So we tried to get pregnant for just under a year, which felt like 17 years. And every single person around me, I swear, was getting pregnant in that time. But we snuck in just underneath the diagnosis of infertility because that's usually after 1 year. So I felt very grateful to get pregnant. And then once I was pregnant, it was no bueno. I work an active job, 12-hour shifts on my feet, and the nausea hit me right away. But unlike what you'll hear from Jen's story, I didn't really throw up in my first trimester. I was just so nauseous. I was like hungover and car sick and seasick all at the same time. I wasn't actually hungover. I felt hungover. Like, I wish I was hungover. It would have been more fun. At least I would have had a party night. But I just felt awful all day, and I would dry heave like over and over and over again. And it was like I was like craving the relief, like I wanted to throw up.
It's awful when you can't get it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people have experienced this in their life, that like feeling of nausea, but not actually, you just want to throw up at that point.
And feel better.
So for months, you didn't ever get that relief, which is awful.
And it never went away. And working night shift was so hard because my nausea would peak between like 3 to 5 p.m. And that's kind of when I'd be getting ready for my night shift. And I remember just sitting on the couch and my husband would make me chicken noodle soup. And I'd put like a half a pack of Lipton, or not Lipton, so those little...
Oh, the crackers.
Premium Plus crackers.
Yeah.
Lipton's noodle soup and Premium Plus crackers literally like sustained me, and sour candies. They were great. So yeah, I had a rough go with nausea, and I kind of got over that maybe like, well, I went on meds, which was life-changing. That was really great.
Yeah.
And then I started feeling better kind of like 15, 16 weeks, a little bit, but then I started throwing up. It was all very odd. But then I'd get that relief. So I actually did feel better.
Pros and cons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't into my 20s, when I was like week 24 or so, that I realized the mental toll pregnancy was having on me. I just was like looking back in such a deep, dark place. And I've struggled with anxiety and depression before. So my midwife referred me to a reproductive psychiatrist early on in my pregnancy, but I didn't actually get connected with them until I was about 24 weeks. And at this point, I realized like the intrusive thoughts were taking over my day and night. Like I couldn't sleep because I was playing out all these scenarios in my head. So I'd hear about something that happened at work with somebody who had a loss or a stillborn, and then I would replay it in my head as if it was happening to me. And I would imagine it. Like I would imagine like, okay, how am I going to tell my family? How am I going to tell my husband? How am I going to tell all my friends? And I would like play it out in my head as if it was actually happening to me. And it wasn't until I got connected with a new counselor and with the psychiatrist that I realized how, like, they're common feelings, but they're not normal. Like, it's normal to be anxious, not anxious, but like to feel, uneasy. Your brain is kind of rewiring you to be like a protective parent for your baby. So you do have more of those thoughts, but this was like beyond that. And I didn't realize how bad it was and how much I was spiraling every single night and how just like depressed I was in my first trimester. I thought I was just tired. I'm like, oh, I can't really get out of bed. Like I'm working hard. But looking back, I'm like, I was in like a very deep, dark hole because all I wanted was to be pregnant. I wanted to be pregnant for years before we started trying, but just it wasn't in the cards for us with where we were at in our life. So that when I finally became pregnant after wanting it for so long, I felt so much guilt and shame for not enjoying it. And I didn't really feel connected. I just it was not a good feeling and lots of guilt about it. And then I started feeling a little bit better after working with that psychiatrist. We upped my medications, which really helped. I didn't think like a small dose change could make such a huge difference, but it was wonderful.
And there's nothing to be ashamed of with taking medication. If you need help, get the help. We're going to talk about it a little bit more like at the end of this episode, but just the key point, there's nothing wrong with being on medication and needing that extra little bump to get you through, especially when you're trying to work, provide for your family, still making meals. When you're still trying to survive every day, you do what you need to do.
Do what you need to do. And there are lots of medications that are safe in pregnancy and for breastfeeding. Yep. There's no shame in needing them when you're pregnant. No. I'm so happy I didn't try to just power through because I was really struggling. And then once I started feeling like a little bit better physically and mentally, then at work one day I became a patient. We had a very eventful day at work and I started having what felt like contractions and I was around 27 weeks. So then I panicked and spiraled like, oh my gosh, I'm in labor, which is not what you want. So the OB working that day said, take a week off, rest, relax, recover. And then in a few days after that, I actually ended up getting COVID and we got so sick. And then there was a heat wave and I tried returning to work after this, but I could not get myself back into it. I was still having very regular cramps. They ruled out that it wasn't early labor and I just had like an irritable uterus.
There's so many things that you don't even know about pregnancy until you're pregnant. They're like, oh yeah, that happens. Oh yeah, oh yeah, cramping normal. Like it's really nothing to worry about. And you're like,
doesn't feel so normal.
It's terrifying.
Yeah, it didn't feel so good.
No.
Oh yeah, when I had COVID too, the Slurpee cup. So one night, the first night we were really sick, we used Uber Eats to get Slurpees delivered and I drank it really fast. And then everything's very loosey-goosey in pregnancy. Every time I would have a coughing fit, I would throw up a little bit. So then the Slurpee cup became my barf bucket for like a week because I had the worst cough. It was so gross. But I was so sick, like I did not have another option. So I would...
Like you could have used something else to throw up.
The Slurpee cup was great because it has like that plastic lining. So I would throw up into it and it was just like liquid coming up. I'd rinse it out in the bathroom and then it would be clean. And then by like maybe day 5 or 6, it was in the bed next to my husband. He's like, get that cup away from me. And I was like, fair enough. This is pretty gross.
Yeah.
But I mean, that cup, it was important. It got me through that week. So after I recovered from COVID, I didn't really recover physically. I was still cramping all the time. It was a heat wave. I could not function properly at that point. And I was really worried that I was going to go into preterm labor because I kept having these contractions. Mentally, I was just not doing well. And the thing is with pregnancy, at the end of pregnancy, you don't get a vacation. You get a baby. Like that's the beginning of your journey. Mm-hmm. I was like, I'm going to burn myself out here. I'm going to go into motherhood not well. I was not well physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Like I was just not doing well. So together with my midwife and my husband, we decided it was best if I went off work early. And that was the best decision I ever made. I felt so much guilt about it that I wasn't able to like power through. I worked with a lot of other nurses who worked till they were like 36, 37 weeks. And I felt really shamed that like I couldn't do that. But once I actually went off work, it was the best thing I did for myself, for my family. The first time in my whole pregnancy, I actually felt like a lightness and a little bit of joy, dare I say.
Oh, wow.
A little smidge of joy. Yeah. I got to enjoy those last few weeks. The funny thing is, as soon as I went off, then my back flared up and I couldn't walk more than like 5 minutes. And I'm like, there was like one thing after another. Like I just felt like I couldn't win.
Yeah. You couldn't catch a break. It was just like you were getting hit down again. Like every time you tried to stand back up, it just life knocked you.
I was like, you know that gopher game or that, you know?
Yeah, every time you popped back up,
it was like, bam. Yeah. So it was difficult. So I'm really glad that I did that and I went off work. It was scary. It was hard. And like financially it was difficult because I had to go on EI, but I made myself and my health a priority. And it really helped my transition into becoming a mom because I went into labor rested. Well, sort of rested. You don't sleep much when you're pregnant, but as rested as I could be. And that would not have been the case if I had kept working. And I can only imagine that I would not have had as enjoyable of a postpartum experience if I didn't take care of myself for those last few months. Because I was just running myself to the ground and trying to not prove, but just trying to be like, I can do this. I can keep up. Like
prove it to yourself.
Prove it to myself. Yeah. And I mean, like, I'm a hard worker. It's okay if I need to take a step back, but it's hard for career women because you want to have it all. And society tells you that you're supposed to have it all. You're supposed to work. You're supposed to be a mother. You're supposed to.
You can do it. Women can do everything. It's very,
Yeah. So it was hard, but I'm proud of myself. Go me.
Go you.
Yay. And I also got to nest when I was off work. I love to clean and organize. I'm a recovered slob, which we'll talk about one day. And I got to paint the nursery, organize it. It was great. That was the best part of my pregnancy.
Because you advocated for yourself, though. Like you fought hard to get to that point. You deserve to have a little bit of enjoyment in nesting and resting at the end, right? Because you actually fought to get there and you did what you needed to do, which is so important.
And bless my midwife. She always said, you can be replaced at work, but you can't be replaced by your family. And she was the first person who kind of put the idea in my head that you may not be able to work as long as you like. You work a hard job. You have a history of anxiety and depression. Like you're at a higher risk of postpartum mental illness. Like you need to take care of yourself. And I'm very grateful that, both my midwives said this to me constantly. And it really did make me feel like I could take that time off for myself.
Bless the midwives.
Bless them. Angels. Love them.
Yep.
Yeah. So that was mine. I was like a little gopher getting batted down. But
I just never came back up.
No, I was going to say, you just stayed down.
I just stayed down.
Yeah. So Jen had something we call HG or Hyperemesis gravidarum. And this is different than morning sickness. So morning sickness affects about 80% of pregnant people. where HG affects less than 3%. And what this is, it's like an actual clinical diagnosis where you are violently ill. You have extreme nausea and vomiting to the point of often requiring hospitalization, always requiring medication. And it takes away, well, it prevents you from doing your day-to-day tasks like working or caring for other children. So Jen's going to share a little bit more about that and her experience because it was very difficult.
It was awful. I hated pregnancy.
And more people need to talk about HG. Amy Schumer and Kate Middleton had it.
Yes. And they did talk about it. Amy Schumer talks about it in her comedy sketch. And it's good. There needs to be more awareness that it's okay if you don't like pregnancy. And I remember the first time I eventually went back to work after being off for months and months in my pregnancy. I eventually went back to work, and other moms that I had worked with were like, oh, don't you just love pregnancy? And I was like, I think I hate it. And they were just shocked. And I was like, I know that sounds bad, but I'm like, it's like, I love my child. I love that I'm going to have like this child and I can't wait to give birth. And I was grateful, but I hated the experience. And I felt so bad saying that out loud because no one else had ever said that to me. Everyone talks about how positive their experiences was, but I had hyperemesis and it was awful. And we had also been trying for a while to get pregnant. And I have a whole bunch of kind of other diagnoses, endometriosis, PCOS. And I was told at a young age, like, you might not be able to get pregnant. So I was already having kind of these negative thoughts going into it, which probably wasn't the best frame of mind. So when I finally got pregnant, I was like, oh yeah, like my body did it. Yay, body. I was like so happy for myself and my husband. And, we were going to make a family, but I was so happy my body worked because I was terrified it wouldn't. And then it was really early on. It was like within the first 6-7 weeks. Like I basically just found out I was actually pregnant and then the vomiting started and it just didn't stop. And it went for at least...
And it went from like 0 to hero, right? Like there was no like easing into it.
No, all of a sudden I was just violently ill and I was like, is this food poisoning? Like you don't really know at that point. And I'm like, people talk about morning sickness, which isn't just in the morning. Morning sickness can be any time of the day. So it's kind of
all day sickness.
It's kind of a stupid name. But
it's
so
a very
I was like,
stupid name.
Is this morning sickness? Like, all night I'm up throwing up, but it could be normal. Like this could be morning sickness. You don't know. So I'm just kind of telling myself these things. And finally after like, I don't know, 4 or 5 days of not eating, not drinking anything and just vomiting, we were like,
super pleasant.
We should go to the hospital. Like, this isn't okay. You're worried you're going to harm your baby because I'm not getting any nutrients. Are they getting nutrients? Are they like, is this a sign I'm getting a miscarriage? I have no idea. So we went to the hospital. We went to the ER and they were really great. Like they actually saw me right away, but it was during COVID. So I had to wear a mask and I was like it made me want to vomit just having the mask on, right? Because you're breathing into the same place. So I would like in the corner be taking my mask off. I'm like, I hope I don't get COVID
with
because
your vomit breath.
Here I am in the hospital. It was with my vomit bag. It was awful.
Well, I'm proud of you for going to the hospital because a lot of people, when either they're really sick or physically, mentally, they don't feel like they don't feel like they should reach out when they're pregnant because they're told, oh, you get sick when you're pregnant. Yes. Like it's normal. Oh, it's, and we're told to like deal with these things where sometimes you need to advocate for yourself and get treatment. Because imagine how miserable you would have been at home. Well, you wouldn't have been functioning.
No.
At some point.
And it wasn't advocating for me. I was advocating for the baby. And that was the part that got me like, no, what if this is harming my baby? And that's what made me actually go to the hospital. So it wasn't that I cared at all that I was feeling sick, but me and my husband are like, what is this doing to the baby? And that's where I was like, nope, we need to go. And it was great. They gave me lots of really hardcore medication. And they're like, you need medication. Like, this isn't okay. You need to talk to your family doctor. Possibly you have this. And they referred me to a program. And I don't know, like we're in Canada, we're in BC, and we have this wonderful program. It's vomiting and nausea in pregnancy. And it's a specific program just for that. And they are the most amazing people. They were all so kind, and I ended up going to them. So you don't actually have to go to the ER. I just would go to the special vomiting and nausea clinic from then on, and they would give me IVs. They would like turn the lights down and give me like, bring me ice and warm blankets and pillows. And they would just like give me all the IV fluids, all the like medication, all the things that I needed. And they would check on me, and I'd be there for like 4 to 6 hours a day every time I had to go in. But they'd still phone you, and they would check on you every day on the phone. And so we're going to do a whole episode. We say this all the time about all these things, but we're going to do a whole one on hyperemesis and the resources out there. So I'm not going to talk about it too much more, but it was really awful. And I did not go to work. I didn't talk to my husband for almost a month. I didn't talk to my family. So anyone that wanted to like know what was happening was messaging my husband, and then he'd like peek in the bathroom. I set up blankets and pillows in there.
In the bathroom.
Yeah, he'd be like, oh, she's still puking. Like, we just didn't talk, which is hard on your relationship. But everyone assured me the baby was safe, and that was kind of what kept you going. But I legitimately thought I was going to die. I did not think I was going to make it the next 15 minutes or the next hour, let alone the next day. And so that put me in a very dark mental state. And without going too much into it, I have diagnosed PTSD. And so I was already more susceptible to postpartum mental health. And my therapist had told me this originally. So here I am feeling like I'm going to die. And I was already on medication for my PTSD, and it was safe in pregnancy. But I was just like, I'm already on medication and I think I'm going to die. And every day this just kept repeating its cycle. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to have a baby and be okay mentally after this. And then that's terrifying.
Sounds very scary.
So it was just like, it just kept going. And then I got shingles. And the doctor, when I had to go to the ER because I needed the medication, it was a weekend. I couldn't get into a clinic, and it's really painful if you've ever had shingles.
Very painful.
And he's like, but you're pregnant? Like, I was pretty big at this point. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, it's really rare to get in pregnancy. I was like, just sign me up. Why not?
Add that to my list.
So I didn't even like poke out. I just was like getting more things shoved down at me. And I was like, okay, cool. Shingles, which really sucked. And anyway, so I got shingles, and I eventually did go back to work. I felt better. The medication takes a while to kind of like accumulate in your system. So eventually it caught up, and I was doing a lot better. I was just eating like bagels, plain toast and butter. Like, I was not eating a lot.
And butter.
Like, you just find those little things that you can actually stomach, and that's what I would eat. So at work, I would just have like the same snacks, and I had to like drink a ton of water. I always made sure I had stuff to puke in if I needed to.
The little blue puke bags, you have those everywhere?
Yeah, I just found one in my car actually.
Me too!
I threw it out. I was like, I don't think I need this puke bag anymore. So yeah, my pregnancy just wasn't good, and I felt so bad saying that I hated it, but I eventually started using that at the end, and people are like, oh, really? I was like, so I would explain a little bit, and people are like, I've never heard of this before, and people always say they love it, and I was like, I think more people need to explain that they don't always love it. Yeah. I didn't have nice hair. Reasons, I didn't have nice nails. I didn't have this bump. Same thing. Like, I work in a career that's very career oriented, and you need to always be the best, and you need to always, be working 110% to get noticed so that your name is like has a good association to it, and so that you could get the next job or the next promotion. Like, it's a very, work oriented place. And so
competitive.
Being off work, yes. So being off work already, I felt really crappy. And then being at work while feeling crappy, I was like, oh, this is already not good. Like, people are going to judge me. And I had all those same thoughts. And I went off work again, maybe the month before my due date. And anyways, it was also the best. Yeah. I just couldn't, there's no way I could keep going and then give birth. Like you said, you don't get a break after the baby's born.
No, you get a baby.
You get a baby.
Babies aren't easy.
And I was so worried about my mental health. And the good thing is that I had already had a therapist that I was set up with that was familiar with me and that I kept working with all through my pregnancy, all through postpartum. I still see her. But it kind of helped give me those checks and balances. Like, I know you. Like, I didn't see her for a few months there when it was really bad because I couldn't talk. But then once I eventually did see her again, she's like, I'm not sure working is good. Like, you need to take care of yourself. And all of my doctors that I saw, so like my whole medical team that I was dealing with, basically told me, like, there's no award for making it through your pregnancy without medication or for asking for help. And so that's one of those big things that we just really want to emphasize in today's episode, is that it is okay to ask for help. If you are not doing well, if you need medication for mental health or for an illness like hyperemesis, or even if you don't have hyperemesis and you're just vomiting a lot and nauseous a lot, you can also take medication for that. Like,
I took it. It was great.
Like, don't think that it's just okay and everyone gets nauseous. I'll deal with it. Everyone else does.
Yeah.
Well, no, there's medication and people go and get help. They just don't want to admit that out loud.
Definitely.
But so many women that we know took the medication. And there's different types of medication, different amounts. Like, just ask for help if you need it.
And there's medications for all kinds of things in pregnancy you may need. You may have gestational diabetes and need
blood
insulin.
Blood
pressure. You may, a lot of times your thyroid kind of gets a little lazy in pregnancy and you need some thyroid medication. Pregnancy itself is not an illness or a disease, but the side effects can be so debilitating, whether it's mental or physical. So if you're struggling mentally, physically, however, both, please reach out to your primary care provider, because you may not enjoy your pregnancy, but we want you to be safe as possible, you and baby. So
and it is common. So please don't think that you're alone. If you are not enjoying it, if you are struggling, it is not fun to talk about. And it makes me have tears in my eyes because it was so hard. But now I have this beautiful baby and it makes everything worthwhile. And now when you think about like, can I survive pregnancy again is a question that my husband and I talk about every day. Like, can we survive? Can we survive with having a little baby at home if I try to get pregnant again? There's just so many things. So pregnancy is hard.
Very hard.
It is not this easy thing that you were just going to have this cute little bump. You're going to work the whole time.
I mean, maybe.
Okay, maybe. And amazing.
Yay for you if that's what you...
Yay for you. No judgment.
Yeah.
But
just maybe don't tell everyone about it. No, kidding. Just keep it to yourself. No, I'm kidding.
We're just a little jaded from our experiences, maybe. But anyway,
but everyone struggles with something, and often people won't talk about it. Like it can be trying to get pregnant, staying pregnant, being pregnant, postpartum. So everyone struggles with something, and it's okay. And it's okay to talk about. It's also okay if you don't want to talk about it. Yeah, but we'll talk about it for you.
Oh, yeah. We will talk about all the things. And I knew people that were dealing with infertility. So when I'm hating pregnancy, that made me feel even more guilty. And it was nothing that they did or said, but I was just...
That was a hard one.
Felt terrible because they would do anything to be in the position I was in. And here I was thinking I was going to die and hating it. And the juxtaposition of those two, it just adds... adds to your mental state, right?
Yeah. People struggle to get and stay pregnant. And then here we were pregnant and... just the shame and the guilt, it just keeps, there's like somebody with a little shovel just want some more.
If you ever felt those things, we feel you. We are 100% with you on that. It
ain't easy.
It is hard. So but there are some good. Let's talk a little bit about what we found. Like, what would you say was a good thing?
Do the good, the bad, the ugly. So throughout, good.
And we know it wasn't fun, but what was the good that you would point out?
Well, by the end, I had a killer bump.
Which is important. You want those cute, like, bump pictures, and you want to feel pregnant.
Yeah. I definitely wasn't, like, one of those cute people that, like, didn't gain weight and was just all belly. Like, I kind of just, like, zoomed out everywhere. Like, but that's okay, because then I still had a great little bump, and I loved it. And it was fun. I really enjoyed maternity clothes because I was pregnant I was really pregnant over summer. I gave birth in October. So summertime, it sucked being pregnant in the heat, but those little flowy dresses, I looked cute. Yeah. That was my good.
That is a good.
Yeah. What about you? What was your good?
My good, I think just it is incredible what happens. And so for me, I'm a nerd. I might not be a nurse like Karlee here, but I have a degree.
We can be nerds.
But I have a degree in biology, and I'm super nerdy. And so for me, I was like, oh, what is happening? Like, what stage of development are we at? And I'd constantly be Googling what was happening, like what was actually developing at that time, what was happening with their nervous system, what could they do, what could they,
like they can breathe and practice breathing and swallow and blink. Like,
it is amazing.
I don't know how. Like, it was shockingly early.
Yes. So I was like nerding out the whole time, and I loved those apps that told you the size. And then I'd read into what they're developing every week. What could they do that was new? And I was just like nerding out. And so I think that experience was really, really cool, and I loved it. And the only, I guess, this is good. I'll just focus on the positive. That was good. Loved it.
That was it. Yeah. So what was the bad? So we had the good, the bad. I think for me, it was just the nausea and being so tired. Just like, it just stole my joy. It robbed me of it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, it was just that the expectation of pregnancy and then what pregnancy was actually like. So that high expectation I had and how low it was, and that crash, that was just the bad for me. And they say this in life, like when you expect certain things, it almost makes it worse when they don't happen. So if you just have no expectations, it's a little bit easier.
Yeah.
And so I think that just crashed for me was just really hard mentally.
That makes me happy that we're talking about this because there's no shame in it. And I think we just need to normalize different experiences.
Yes.
So we shared a common experience of not loving pregnancy, but I think we need more people just to talk about it in general, whether they loved it or didn't like it, or it was just,
Yeah, I know some people who just felt like, meh. They didn't love it, didn't hate it. Meh. It was just,
meh.
It was just an experience. They were pregnant, and they were like, I can't say I love it, but it hasn't been bad. I just it's a bit.
It was moo, like a cow's opinion.
So everyone has different experiences. So it was just the bad mental state, I think, was the bad for me. And then what about the ugly?
The ugly for me was definitely like the intrusive thoughts and the spiraling. I didn't realize how bad it was until it was not like too late, but until I experienced it for longer than I should have. That was really hard.
Yeah, intrusive thoughts are really hard again. I've had my experience with those, so I know exactly what you mean. And if you've never had intrusive thoughts, like that is great, but I think it is more common than people think, like having like what an intrusive thought is. And sometimes you just don't put that title on it because you don't know until you've seen a therapist and you're like, oh, that is definitely what's going on in here.
And one thing my psychiatrist said to me is that your brain is wired in pregnancy and postpartum to be more alert for safety. You got to keep this little creature alive. So she said the thoughts, if they kind of come and go, it's very like part of the like normal postpartum experience. But if those thoughts stay and kind of keep jabbing at you and you keep playing them out and they're actually affecting your day, you're not able to just kind of acknowledge them and move on. That's when it's a problem. Yeah. So we are more heightened, and it is common to be more on the anxious side. So you may not experience actual anxiety, but to be a little bit more alert and heightened, that part is all part of the normal process. But if they're eating at you and you're spiraling and you're playing it out in your head over and over and over again, then definitely get some help.
Yeah. And for me, the ugly, as the title of the episode says, for me, it was the hyperemesis.
Yeah.
And I am actually very excited to do an episode on it because I think there's so many things in pregnancy and postpartum and parenting that we just don't talk enough about. So if it happens to you, you feel very alone and isolated. And we really want to break that. Definitely. We really want to talk about all of the things, even if we didn't experience it, stuff that we know about, or you from work, like working in labor and delivery, you know a lot of things that are maybe not as common, but that can happen. And so I think allowing us to talk about it and be this safe place where we bring up some of these hard topics, it's going to make people feel less alone. And we don't want anyone to ever feel alone or isolated in pregnancy or postpartum or parenting, because it is hard.
It's hard. It's all very hard. And we may all have different experiences, but hopefully we can make each other feel less alone. And hey, Amy Schumer, if you're watching this and you want to come on for our hyperemesis episode, like we will have you.
Hit us up, but we would love to have you.
Yeah, Kate Middleton, you as well. Yeah. But
I feel like that's less likely, but that's okay.
Yeah, maybe Amy, if you're out there.
Okay, well,
what's that?
That was kind of our episode, all the things that we wanted to go over about pregnancy. And we could talk about this for hours. There's so much more to it, but that was just a breakdown kind of our experiences and why we didn't love it, but the little good things that we could find in it. And yeah.
So now let's move on to our Mom Day mantra.
Ooh.
So every week we have a little Mom Day mantra, just something to kind of keep us feeling light and positive. I think you should share it this week.
Okay. So our Mom Day mantra today is, your journey is your own. Pregnancy is not one size fits all. So you can say that as an I statement if you want. If this is something like, if you're going through pregnancy right now, you can be like, my journey is my own. Pregnancy is not one size fits all. My pregnancy is my own, right? You can kind of say these things and reinforce that if you and your best friend are pregnant at the same time and your experiences are vastly different, this is a good thing to remind yourself, like, it's not one size fits all. Definitely. My pregnancy is my own, and try to find the little bits of good. I mean, we hated it, but we could still find a little bits of good. And then you get your baby and it all just, your brain literally forgets some of the experiences. And this is what my therapist was explaining to me, is that your body is primed to want to have more children. And so psychologically speaking, your brain will try to forget the bad things that you go through. And it's wild because I know, and like I'm traumatized by it. So I actually have like kind of visceral reactions when I talk about it, but I can't remember all those details. And sometimes I ask my husband, like, was it as bad as I thought? And he'd be like, yes, nodding his head. But sometimes I forget. So it's kind of an amazing thing. So
yeah, that's a nice way to put it. Your brain tricks you to forget everything so you can relive it a second time. But that's also a good, like, it shows why therapy and actually working through these thoughts and feelings and emotions is so important, because we don't want you to just stuff it down. Yeah. You want to process it and work through it and then relive it. No.
I'll let you know if I end up doing this a second time, what my experience is like, but we'll see.
Well, you'll know if she gets pregnant because she'll be green. Yeah. So if you notice a little puke bag puking on camera, it'd be great.
Well, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for joining us.
We hope that you found something knowledgeable, interesting, funny.
Happy Mom Day.
You know?
Yeah. So if you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe to our channel. If you're listening on podcasts, then subscribe to our podcast so you can join us every Monday. Mom Day.
Every Mom Day.
All right.
It's our favorite.
Talk to you next week.
See you.
Bye now.